For the former president, he's now distancing himself from the controversial Project 2025.
Trump's proposed Project 2025 is a blueprint for reshaping the American workforce and economy, with the promise of efficiency and economic growth. However, beneath the rhetoric lies a strategy that could result in longer working hours, fewer labor protections, and lower wages for many workers. This analysis explores the underlying policies of Project 2025, how they would impact American workers, and the broader economic and political implications. Part 1. The End of Worker Protections Project 2025 seeks to roll back decades of labor protections, shifting power toward employers. This includes dismantling regulations on working conditions, overtime pay, and collective bargaining rights. By weakening the Department of Labor's enforcement capabilities, the initiative aims to reduce restrictions on businesses, giving employers more control over work hours and benefits. Workers may face fewer legal options for challenging unsafe conditions or unfair pay practices. If these protections are removed, companies could require employees to work in hazardous conditions without fear of significant legal consequences. The plan may also encourage the rollback of existing wage laws, potentially allowing employers to pay less than the federally mandated minimum wage in certain industries. By diminishing legal safeguards, Project 2025 could lead to higher workplace injury rates and exploitation of vulnerable workers. Part 2. Longer hours, fewer benefits. One of the key components of Project 2025 is deregulation, which would remove caps on working hours and minimize mandatory overtime compensation. This means that many employees, particularly in blue-collar jobs, could be forced to work longer shifts without additional pay. The plan also suggests cutting federally mandated benefits, such as paid family leave and workplace safety requirements, further eroding workers' rights. With overtime protections weakened or eliminated, employees in industries such as manufacturing, healthcare, and transportation could face extended work weeks without appropriate compensation. The stress and physical toll of excessive work hours could lead to burnout, increased workplace accidents, and declining productivity over time. Additionally, without guaranteed paid leave policies, workers may be forced to choose between earning a paycheck and taking time off to recover from illness or care for a family member. Part 3. Corporate tax cuts at the expense of wages. Project 2025 emphasizes reducing corporate tax rates and eliminating worker-focused regulations in the name of economic growth. However, historical trends suggest that such tax cuts primarily benefit shareholders and executives rather than employees. The result could be a stagnation or even reduction in real wages, while profits increase for large corporations. The plan does not include provisions to ensure wage increases for workers despite company tax savings. The argument that tax cuts stimulate job growth is often used to justify reductions in corporate taxes. However, past corporate tax cuts have led to stock buybacks and executive bonuses rather than meaningful wage increases for the average worker. With Project 2025, businesses could see an increase in profits while simultaneously cutting costs through lower wages and weaker labor laws. Workers may struggle with rising living costs while their wages remain stagnant, widening the gap between the wealthy and the working class. Part 4. The privatization of social services. Another major aspect of Project 2025 is the push to privatize social services, including Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment benefits. If enacted, this could mean reduced access to essential support systems for millions of Americans. By shifting these programs to private entities, the plan risks making them less reliable and more expensive, leaving workers to bear the burden of additional costs for retirement and healthcare. Privatizing Social Security, for example, would shift retirement savings into investment accounts that fluctuate with the stock market, creating uncertainty for retirees. Medicare privatization could lead to higher healthcare costs as private insurers set prices based on profit motives rather than public interest. Unemployment benefits may become harder to access, leaving workers vulnerable during economic downturns. These changes would disproportionately impact low and middle-income workers who rely on these programs as financial safety nets. Part 5. Weakening Unions and Worker Bargaining Power Project 2025 aims to limit the influence of labor unions by making it more difficult for workers to organize. The plan includes restrictions on union funding, increased oversight over collective bargaining agreements, and easier paths for employers to dissolve unions. Without strong labor unions, workers will have less negotiating power, leading to lower wages and fewer job protections. Unions have historically played a crucial role in securing fair wages, benefits, and safe working conditions for employees. By limiting union power, Project 2025 could lead to a decline in collective bargaining agreements, giving corporations greater authority over worker contracts. The weakening of unions could also make it harder for workers to advocate for better healthcare, retirement benefits, and workplace protections, ultimately reducing the overall quality of employment in many industries. Part 6. Increased use of at-will employment policies. Under Project 2025, more states may be encouraged to adopt at-will employment policies, making it easier for employers to terminate workers without cause. While this would increase job flexibility for businesses, it would also create instability for employees who could be fired at any time without legal recourse. This change would disproportionately affect low-wage workers and those in industries with historically high turnover rates. At-will employment allows companies to dismiss workers without explanation, leaving employees vulnerable to arbitrary terminations. Under Project 2025, businesses could use this policy to remove employees who attempt to unionize, speak out against unfair labor practices, or request higher wages. This system would create a workforce constantly under pressure to comply with employer demands, further tipping the balance of power away from employees. Conclusion: what Project 2025 means for the American worker if implemented. Project 2025 would significantly alter the American workforce, shifting power away from employees and toward corporations. The combination of deregulation, reduced labor protections, and weakened social safety nets would likely lead to longer hours, lower wages, and fewer benefits for millions of workers. While proponents argue that these measures would boost economic growth, history suggests that they primarily serve the interests of business owners and the wealthy elite. The economic consequences of Project 2025 could be severe, leading to higher income inequality, job insecurity, and a declining standard of living for many Americans. Without strong labor laws and protections, workers could find themselves working harder for less pay while struggling to afford basic necessities like housing, healthcare, and education. As the political landscape evolves, it is crucial for workers, policymakers, and labor advocates to understand the potential impact of Project 2025. The future of worker rights, fair pay, and job security may depend on public awareness and resistance to policies that prioritize corporate profits over the well-being of American employees. If you found this analysis helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more discussions on politics, labor rights, and economic policy. Do you think Project 2025 will help or hurt American workers? Share your thoughts in the comments below.